I'd like to call the Tuesday, July 15, 2014 Papillion City Council meeting to order. Mrs. Butler, would you please take the roll?
Florence. Mumgard. Gaines. Glover. Jaworski. Klug. Stubbe. Ingberg.
Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And do we have an affidavit of publication on file?
That is correct.
And a current copy of the Open Meetings Act is posted in the back of the council chambers. Mr. Hoynes, Administrator's report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Begin my report this evening by, in case you weren't aware, there's some road construction going on in our community. Give you a couple of updates on the 84th Street project. Obviously, the most apparent as you motored to the council meeting this evening, the asphalt overlay. The bad news is it's pretty torn up. The good news is that's a very short-term project, and so over the next couple of weeks they will wind that up. Marty was kind enough to provide, and I did ask him to set the construction schedule for the actual asphalt that's being laid over, and the timing here in the next, I think they start tomorrow night at 6 p.m. from 5th Street going north, and they're going to be laying that asphalt. So within the next couple of weeks, we should wrap that particular project up, and so certainly would ask for your patience. And I was telling a downtown business person this afternoon, I said, in 2 weeks and for the next 5 or 6 years, we'll all be very, very happy with how that road looks, but just need a little patience with that if you ever do get called on that. The other one requires a little bit more patience, the 84th south to Schramm Road. There's really two time frames here, and we probably haven't communicated well enough. There's the contractual schedule to complete things, the contract that was actually signed. The condition in that schedule is that they deliver the project by November of 2015, and we feel very confident. Of course, everything's always weather dependent in this state that we will meet that. We'll finish this section and that section contractually. However, early on the contractor put a time frame and thought that they would have this open by now. And so we fielded some media inquiries here in the last few days about, well, you're 3 or 4 weeks behind. That's by the contractor's aggressive schedule. That's not by the contract schedule. Bottom line is they hope to have that leg open by mid-August. And there's really no liquidated damage or anything applied if somebody said, well, you said it would be open by that time. So, but again, the entire project's not scheduled for delivery until November of 2015. Switching topics a little bit, pleased to announce that Chief Bowes and his staff applied for an additional grant through a SAFER grant through Office of Department of Homeland Security. And just this week, Chief was notified there's an additional $473,000 that the cooperative effort between La Vista, the rural district, and Papillion was awarded because I believe 5, Chief, of the hires were veterans or are veterans. And so there was additional compensation eligible for that. And when I shared that information with Brenda Gunn today, she pointed out that timing is very good because about the time when that grant expires, will be the time we're no longer paying for 911 service a couple of different times. So certainly that continues to be a project that's worked out very, very well. You should be receiving tomorrow the draft budget. As I reported a couple of weeks ago, pleased to announce that it is a balanced budget with no proposed tax increase. That's a very simple version of a very complex process. And so if the next 2 weeks are really designed for you as council members to look through that, if you have any input or feedback, a discussion you would like to have, the public copy of that, which I think we have 3 meetings now because of the way it works, so you have about 3 weeks to look through that, but the public document is scheduled to be introduced at your next meeting 3 weeks from tonight, which makes it public on August 1st. So the sooner you can look through that over the next week in particular, if you see something that concerns you or you want change, give me a call and let me know, and I'll try to facilitate that. 2 final things, the Historical Downtown Business Association tomorrow night, and this is becoming a weekly event if you haven't went down there, but they're having a live band down there again tomorrow, and really encourage council members to go down there and maybe walk around a little bit and see the things that they're doing all through the month of July and August. That entire organization has been very, very impressive. And finally, if you haven't, conclude my report by stating if you have not responded, I think there were a couple of you that have not responded yet to Nicole on the groundbreaking date for the Public Works building. If you could respond to her in the next couple of days, we can finalize that. Again, we're working very hard to get all 8 council members there, and I think she told me today there were a couple, the 5 or 6 responses she had consensus with a couple of the dates. So we'd like to button that up and get that thing scheduled. Concludes my report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Motion by Councilman Glover. Second by Councilman Gaines. Do we have any proponents? Do we have any opponents? Council discussion? Please vote.
7 yeas, 0 nays.
Next, motion passes. Next is item F1, Ordinance 1689, an ordinance to amend Chapter 92, Article 3, Section 15, Subsection A of the Papillion Municipal Code having to do with the adoption of the National Fire Protection Association Life Safety Code 101, to amend Chapter 100, Section 5, Subsection J of the Papillion Municipal Code having to do with unsafe buildings and to provide for an effective date. I'd like to invite Chief Building Official Brian Craig up to brief the council.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, City Council. As we spoke about before, the original goal of the fire code adoption would be to apply the same standard that businesses and builders have today through the state. But based on the concerns of council and the public at the last meeting, staff has gone back and revised and proposed an amendment to that, adopting the 2012 IFC, which is consistent with what some of the other jurisdictions that have delegated authority are doing. But that additional code would require that the council table the agenda item for tonight and it go back to Planning Commission for review and recommendation. And then the council could take it up again, perceivably at the August 5th meeting. I'm happy to answer any questions. The legislative version of the proposed amendment is included in your packet for review.
And the original intent was to give us the delegated authority so we could respond faster, especially during economic development. We can get out there and do them, and we don't want additional regulations on developers, and this still meets that intent, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Are there any questions for Mr. Ernie? Mr. Ernie. Sorry about that, Mr. Craig. Otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and call. Is there a motion to table Ordinance 1689 to the August 5th council meeting?
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Councilman Ingberg. Second by Councilman Stubbe. Please vote.
7 yeas, 0 nays.
Motion passes. Thank you. Next is item F2, Ordinance 1695, an ordinance to amend Chapter 205, Article 2, Section 11 of the Papillion Zoning Code having to do with the development definition, specifically to add the definition of repetitive loss and to modify definitions of substantial damage and substantial improvement related to floodplain management, and to amend Chapter 205, Article 5, Section 43 of the Papillion Zoning Code in its entirety having to do with site development regulations relating to building and impervious coverage requirements for the agricultural district and to provide for an effective date. Is there a motion to approve Ordinance 1695? Motion by Councilman Stubbe. Second by Councilman Florence. Council discussion? Please vote.
7 yeas, 0 nays.
Motion passes. Next item F3, Resolution R14-0112, a resolution to accept the City of Papillion Capital Improvement Plan. Is there a motion to approve Resolution R14-0112? Motion by Councilman Ingberg. Second by Councilman Glover. Do we have any proponents? Do we have any opponents? Council discussion? Please vote.
7 yeas, 0 nays.
Motion passes. Next is committee reports, and I don't believe any committees have met in the last 2 weeks. Do we have any comments from the floor? No comments from the floor. Any council comments? Mr. Jaworski.
For the budget, can I get that in a book? Because it's too hard for me to follow. Thanks.
And if anybody else wants it that way, just let Mr. Hoynes know. Any other council comments? Just a few things from the last couple of weeks. Had employee recognition picnic that was sponsored by the Personnel Committee. Great turnout from that. Gave some awards, both for the fitness program, wrapped up the 90-day program there, and then years of service, all the way from 5 years to, I believe, 35-year award was given out there. How many miles were walked in that fitness thing?
56,000. That's an average of about 4.5. That's twice around the world, by the way. And an average of the 135 plus participants of 4.5 miles every day for 90 days.
Amazing program. Also attended a ribbon cutting for Paragon Dental, and we've got another ribbon cutting coming up this week at A20 Contracting downtown. If you've got that on your calendar, another local business. That one's a veteran-owned business. American Lung Association had a car show out at Shadow Lake and helped judge that. Feel sorry for those participants since I don't know a lot about vintage cars. Also, we had a great turnout at the triathlon. Again, that maxed out. We had people, I believe, from 6 states, and I talked to several from those outlying states, and they said they specifically come here for that, and there were repeat people there as well. So, Lori, thank you for that as well. And also police and fire, a lot of events, especially with the triathlon and the water component. So 250 people came out for that one. Also attended, if you're not aware, a little program. It's called Little Free Library. It's a national program, actually a worldwide program for literally household libraries. They're set up in their yards, and it's a movement across the nation. But Papillion has 3 of these things, and one of them was just opened at 302 Crest Road. They're just in people's yards, but it's a national movement, and people travel around to these things. So 302 Crest Road was the 3rd one, and other couple of updates. Met with a potential developer that was doing site selection on a potential concept that's coming together, and then just the reminder, Tuesday and Wednesday nights at the Plaza, come out for those. There's usually music, and that's by the Downtown Business Association. If you have not attended, I would encourage you to look at the community theater. Hearing great things about Annie out at the community theater, and that's running again. I think it's the 17th through the 19th is when that's running. And then again, just a reminder of all the activities going on at the Sumter Amphitheater. A lot of events. Any other council comments? Motion to adjourn? Motion by Councilman Glover. Second by Councilman Gaines. Please vote.
7 yeas, 0 nays.
We are adjourned.